Kathy sent me an email while I was in the SU board meeting saying that she is ill and couldn't make it out, so I told her to focus on getting healthy, not getting us sick. Adjustments to the agenda 2.0. Any adjustments? I'm gonna suggest one, that we add an 11.2 for personnel.
Right.
Is it personnel or an executive session?
It's already an executive
Oh,
session.
I'm sorry,
so-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we already have one, so I think we'll add that personnel as Colleen suggested. Any others? Hearing none. 3.0, audience and communications. We have an audience. Karen?
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Great, thank you. Everybody in this room knows how wordy I am, and I want to follow the rules. I'm gonna submit some email correspondence to you, I think, you're the secretary, just so you guys have it, the record, and I have a little summary of what I'd like to cover, not only tonight, but just in future meetings. I think it's helpful just to have that. So if you guys, I do have copies for all you guys if you want, but that's that.
Okay.
Okay. And the best way for me to just say what I wanna say for tonight is to read an email that I've already sent to Jeff and, Allegra.
Okay.
So, I'm here to question the ability of Part 2 program, after school, to override a free long-standing extracurricular educational program, which is the theater program, in terms of use of the gym space after school. My immediate concern is that our March and April schedule will be compromised further, and as I stated in my last email to these guys, we've already done our compromising. Specifically and immediately, I'll be requesting that our 2014 schedule remain unchanged, both in number of days and rehearsal end times, which we've requested to be 5 p.m. in March and 5:30 in April. This is partially due to the fact that our schedule has now been communicated and established with our families for over a month, but especially due to issues of fairness. And I don't mean fairness between Part 2 and the theater program, I mean fairness between the theater program and other programs such as basketball, which I feel is a more proper comparison. So long term, short term, I am looking for an answer to that tonight. That's outlined in that paperwork that you have with some additional points about the effort that I put through to not only get input on that particular schedule over the months, but also why we need the gym, and there's a comparison between how we used it last year and this year and so on. But that's all on that piece of paper. So that's what I'd like to figure out, if not tonight, within the next 24, 48 hours, because we have a lot of families we have to communicate to. But long term, I really want to clarify how program use of all the spaces in the school is prioritized as set forth within the town and district policy language, and not by any particular school's administration. I do know that there is a sentence that says that school activities override all other uses, and I think what it's going to come down to is figuring out a program such as Part 2. It needs definition. Is that a school activity or not? So I don't think the theater program I don't think anyone could argue that we're not a school program. So I want to see that policy, more. I want to see what your take on that is. Okay. Related to that, I want to raise the issue of operating space for the theater program, and its operating space, I use that word intentionally rather than storage space, because it is a space that we need access to. Much of it, yes, is storage that we don't need access to, but it would be of much greater benefit to our program and to other entities in the school if they could access what we have. And I just want to explain to this board that we've lost so much space within the building over the past decades to various other concerns that a functional, cost-effective program is now all but impossible. There's a lot to say on the subject. And again, I know I only have a few minutes. I can review the current situation, the history of what I call land grabs. I know that's snarky, but it's what they are. They're land grabs. Particular spaces within the school, and efforts that we've put in to address the issue. I want to instead ask for your help to establish a committee to comprehensively look at the various players and spaces themselves, and finally come up with a solution. Again, I feel like this has been going on for a very long time, and I've restrained from coming to the board hoping to work it out, and I feel like this is where I'm at now. I very briefly want to tell you that I am dumbfounded by the lack of scheduling, by a system by which people can schedule room space at the school. It's incredibly difficult, and I would say just not functional and not transparent. I'm putting that out there, and some of my email should sort of shed some light on that, because you'll be able to see kind of what I at least tried to do, but the fact is our school doesn't have a transparent system or even a functional one for reserving space. And people are constantly showing up, two sets are constantly showing up saying, we had this space, no, we had this space. So it's a problem with the school. And last, I just want to talk about the theater program with this board. No one's come here in a few years, and it's a tricky program because it doesn't have a director. We no longer we had a fleeting enrichment program coordinator. That person was gone. That person was not a good administrator. It's this odd thing in that it only has a staff person when the staff person steps up to do it, right? But sometimes the director is a contracted person, and we don't have a history with them then when they leave. And the parents come and go because their kids graduate. It's an odd thing, but I want to understand how our school supports that program and how we can all build some sustainability into it, because it's really worth it. It's really worth defending and sustaining. So I really want to talk about all these things at the board level at this point. That's my thing.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Okay.
I'll respond briefly if
Yep.
I can with the notes that I just took. This segment of the board meeting, audience and communications, is to allow the public to provide some input.
Yep.
So we're happy to hear about this. We're hearing about this for the first time
I
right
know.
now. So my initial reaction is, even if we could decide something, and you're gonna hear me say in a minute what we can and can't,
Yep.
we're not gonna decide anything tonight.
No, I know,
Because
I
we
know.
can't move that quickly
Right.
about anything, let alone, some policy matters. That takes a little while. So what I heard you looking for, there's at most two things that I think the board can do. The board does look at policy issues, so we can examine the policy that you refer to, and we can do some research and consideration of that. In terms of implementation of programs, that's our administrators. So if I'm hearing some frustration, but if that's really what you're looking for, implementation of these decisions, once we make a policy decision, say, for example, what's a school program or what's not a school program, or what has priority over what,
Right.
we can think about those questions in due time, but the implementation is the administrators. I don't know that the board is ever gonna get involved in that. The other thing that the board could listen to, but we need to talk about this and set the agenda, is hearing about the theater program.
Right.
You see our primary
Right.
teachers here
Right.
as one of the programs that we hear about periodic, in our there's sort of a carousel of what we hear from. Maybe we would consider putting the theater program in that.
Maybe. Because here, let me just, I got
I'm
off my, I
I'm
got
one
off
board
track.
member, I can't
know,
speak for the rest
I
of
got
you.
off track, so let me just, because I'm much better at writing than I am speaking, but let me just read this last thing that I didn't say that I'll just say now.
Okay.
Our students need this program and our community wants this program. This year it serves 76 kids over 8 months of planning and activities. It's free to students and it generates income. It is a large and lonely example of enrichment, okay, at our school, and it would be a shame and an embarrassment if it was trampled on, continued to be trampled on, and lost. So it's a huge program, and if you don't hear about it because we just keep trucking along, we just keep making it happen, and that's why you haven't heard about it before. So I really do want an audience at this level,
I hear you.
at this point. Okay.
At the risk of speaking for the
Yeah,
other
that-
board
okay.
members, I think
Okay.
we hear you.
Yeah, okay, so I'm hoping that Allegra and Jeff and I and Danielle can work out the schedule, impending schedule for March, as it's already been set forth with all the parents, and we're all about to go on break. So that's what I'm hoping happens after this meeting, in this meeting or after this meeting. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks. Okay, I'm leaving. Want to leave?
All right, 4.0. Oh, I'm sorry, any, from other three? No?
Just listening.
Okay, thank you. All right, 4.0, as I mentioned, we have a presentation from some of our primary teachers.
So really pleased and proud to have four of our wonderful primary teachers here to talk about our incredible K-2 program at Heinsberg Community School. And they've worked hard on the PowerPoint and are ready to show what they do, and hopefully will engage in a great conversation with you. And you did not get the PowerPoint because it really is a PowerPoint. It kind of just, you need the explanation to go along with it, but I do have copies of the slides if you'd like to take them. But we purposely didn't send it in the link to all the everything. So, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Diane Barber and I teach kindergarten.
I'm Lee Torag, and I teach first grade.
My name is Branch, and I teach kindergarten.
And I'm Michelle Lass, and I teach first grade.
And I'm going to start with a day in the life of a student in the primary wing, K2. I think the biggest thing as we start every school year is we think about community. And how are we going to build a community within Heinsberg that meets the needs of all the kids that enter kindergarten, first and second grade, as well as all the kids in our building. So we are using different things in our classroom. Most of us are using responsive classroom or supportive classroom, and we're using the Be a Star program that the school has also adopted. So that's the belonging, sharing, trust, accepting responsibility, respect. And you'll see in the beginning of the year in kindergarten, in some of the first and second grades, you might walk into our room the first day and things are covered. You know, there things aren't open for kids to just go over and touch and play. We do things like guided discoveries and slowly open the room and teach how to put things away and how to use the materials appropriately and all of that. And we really work on the trust and accepting each other where we are in our classrooms. And that's really important to become, so that we can build a learning community. Because if you don't have that foundation, the learning community doesn't come as easy for kids.
You ready?
Yep. This is an anchor chart from one of the kindergarten classrooms, I think. And what it is we take pictures of the kids actually practicing. This is a hallway anchor chart. You stay in line, your hands are by your body, you're using quiet voices, you're walking. We all, at the kindergarten level, at least at this point, are doing this. This is my classroom. I go back to the old responsive classroom. I took the Be a Star things, and we talk about what does it look like to make sure that everyone's belonging. How does it feel? What would you hear if you were a little elf on the light? And I know other classrooms in the building also do this. This is the PBIS, again, the Belonging, Sharing, Trust. I think this is a second grade classroom, and they made banners for their classroom. And they go back and revisit it. A lot of times we'll go on a vacation break, and we'll come back that first day, and it's like day one of school again. And we have to go back and really spend some time with this. And then Eunice is going to talk about
Part of our day is spent with writing, so you see 3 examples up there of kindergarten writing, first grade writing, and second grade writing. The kindergarten writing, we've just been doing a theme on the ocean. So they have an ocean book, and they're writing information that they know. And the one I'm going to read you is different than the one that's up there, but I like orcas because they have sharp teeth. And it's inventive spelling. They will get some words, like I said, if you know the word the, I expect to see the in there. So they're getting some of those words in now, but shark is S-H-A-R. Or teeth, you know, they may leave out one of the E's, that kind of stuff. It's the inventive spelling, and it's usually teeth with an F at the end. First grade, we have 2 examples here of writing that they've done.
These are their informational writing called teaching books. This one's about great white sharks, and they're writing information and learning how to teach through illustrations as well. And here's another example of
And using text features, we did
Text
a
features.
whole,
table of
several lessons
contents.
where we looked at informational text and they found ways that they were different than storybooks. So they looked for bold words and headings and photographs versus illustrations and diagrams and labels, and it's been really exciting.
And
It's
how
really enjoying
authors
it.
lead into stories. So this girl has written "What is cute" as a way to grab the reader's attention.
And you'll
It's very
notice
cute.
this
This
has
is cute.
spaces. This has spaces, it's looking
And
at a line
punctuation.
and punctuation.
Kindergarten, they don't
Kindergartners are-
believe in spaces at this point.
Even though we're
They just
trying
keep
to
it
get
going.
that to happen.
The more letters they have, the better it is. It looks longer, it's bigger. We have a couple examples of persuasive typewriting. They're different than the ones that are up there, but they have read books.
And
And
this
then,
is second grade.
and this is second grade, and then they're recommending the books and why they recommend them. So they're sort of persuading you to read those books. So, we spend each day in doing writing. At the beginning in kindergarten, it's more like, this is the line, this is where the letter goes. You know, it has to, you'll get scribble lines at the beginning, and then you start to get some letters that don't necessarily make sense, and then you start getting the beginning sounds. Now they're saying, oh, you mean if I know the, I can write the word the? Yes. Yeah.
And
So-
in first grade,
They
and
build from
as
that.
it goes on, in our spelling program, we have high-frequency words that they learn and they're expected to spell correctly in their writing.
I think in all of the rooms you will find word walls, where there will be words up there that are words that they use frequently, that they can always look to as examples to find. But the words get harder as you go to second grade. And the other biggest part, one of our biggest parts of the day is reading.
So, so literacy is obviously a really big part at K2 because no matter what you do throughout your day, literacy is a part of it. So we want our children to leave K2 literate. The reading section of our day takes many different forms. There's usually a whole group section where you teach kids either decoding skills or comprehension skills. And then there's some small group time where you meet with kids based on their ability levels and move them forward from where they are, hopefully getting everybody to at least the same spot at the end. I have 3 texts here. This first one, Playing Together, is a kindergarten text that kids are expected to be able to read at this point in kindergarten. It's a text level B. And you'll notice as you look through that the kindergarten texts are highly predictable. They include a lot of sight words. We like to play with the blocks. We like to play with the trucks. The pictures provide some cueing system for them for the words that are irregular, like trucks and blocks and things. Dinner for Maisie is a level H book, and this is.
Oh, go ahead, we'll go back.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. We'll do the days now. We wanted to include some data to show you where our kindergarten students are at this point. In the fall, in the fall and in the winter, we give these text level assessments to all students. And in kindergarten, 71 of the 73 students were meeting or above the standard. And at this point, 73 out of 75 students are meeting or exceeding the standard.
Now, what we assessed in the beginning of the year was not a text level. Text level was just initiated now to see where they are.
We just did uppercase and lowercase letters.
Identifying letters, seeing if they knew sounds. And then this time when we assessed, we checked the letters to see if they had increased on that, the sounds, if they had increased. We also initiated sight words, 25 sight words to see how many they knew. We'd like them to know all 25 by the end of the year. And then the
And so would we.
Yes, and then the text level to see where they are. We wanted to see if they were close to B, and 73% of them were. So, and we increased our two students. So the children that did not meet then receive the Tier 2 services. People come into our room and help them in the areas that they're weak to build that up. So, now you can go to first
Now,
grade.
great. So Dinner for Maisie, this is an example of the text that students at this point in first grade should be able to read. It is a level H. You can see there's a vast difference between the first book I sent around. It is not predictable. Dana put food in Maisie's dish. Maisie just looked at her food. She didn't eat one bite. Eat your dinner, Dana said, but Maisie wouldn't eat. You can see that it's a much more complex text. And yes, I do read to them like that all the time so that they are expressive as well.
Can I give you the ending?
Pardon me?
Are you gonna lay the ending?
No.
I take it you passed this level?
I did pass this a couple weeks ago, I believe.
Now you have your,
So the data snap for first grade at this point, at the beginning of the year, 28 out of 51 students met or were above the standard, and that was at level C or D. And so 51%. And then in February, we've just been completing the text levels for first grade, and 37 out of 51 students, or 73% of them, were able to read Dinner with Maisie or better. And again, if for students who the other percent of students that are not meeting the standard are receiving Tier 2 services in and out of the classroom, small group, one-on-one based on need.
and the reason they wanted us to mention earlier is that at the end of kindergarten, usually our percent is high, but at the beginning of first, it's lower. And there is a loss that happens during the summer if the children do not continue reading. I mean, that we know that happens, but they still are able to make it up.
But that's why you get that note from us at the end of the school year that says, make sure you read with your kids all summer, to try to keep that literacy alive all summer long. Second grade. Little Cat, Big Cat. This is a non-fiction text. The text levels that we assess kids with they alternate nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction, fiction. And it's interesting because sometimes children become so accustomed to fiction stories that the nonfiction will throw them. So we really have worked hard at integrating more and more nonfiction in our daily practice. But this one, you can see it as headings, pick photographs instead of illustrations. It's a fairly complex text, and this is the middle of second grade. There's always a comprehension piece with it, and once you get to the second grade level, there are two sections at K1. You ask them to interpret the text literally and a little bit beyond, but by the time they're in second grade, there's a lot of interpretation in the third section, and when it's a nonfiction text, they're asked to use the nonfiction text features to analyze the text. It's fairly complicated, and when you take a look at the text and remember that that's only the middle of second grade and what's coming next for them, it's really remarkable to see where they started and where they're going to leave us. And then is there?
No, there is no data for them. They don't do text level only on children that they're concerned about in second grade at this time of the year. Their big thing is at the end of the year that they do it to make sure they're there. So.
So our math program is called Bridges, and this year we're using the new edition that's aligned with the Common Core. And the curriculum in kindergarten includes counting and cardinality, which is when the number matches, children can understand the number matches the amount of something. So they can see like 10 balls matches 10. And in kindergarten, first and second grade, there's operations, base 10, measurement and data, and geometry. And then there's a number corner is a big component of the Bridges program. And the number corner is organized by the months of the year, September through June. There are different activities that go along with Number Corner. There's calendar grid, where we turn over the calendar cards and do work with those, and calendar collector. Each month you collect something else and analyze data based on what you're collecting. And there's number line at the bottom. You can see the number line, and we do work with number line. And
you actually can't see the number line because one of the activities we do is guess the number in my pocket.
Yep.
So they're covered so that the kids
they have to guess the number. And
so they use words like greater than and less than.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
They know what the range of numbers is on the board, so then they have to guess it. They really like that one.
They love that.
And there's computational fluency and days in school, and those are the 5 activities that we do daily for Number Corner. This is a kindergarten Number Corner example, first grade, and second grade.
And you'll notice how much of the wall it takes.
It does take a lot.
A big part of our classrooms are our number children.
I think the other thing that was really interesting, when I walked into this room, I went, hey, did you guys
Yeah.
put these up? Do you see there's posters there that say mathematical habits of interaction, and these say habits of mind? It was really exciting to see these, because we're completing the third year of a Math Studio experience that we've had, best practices. And this was sort of the focus of a lot of the work that we did, teaching kids to think and act mathematically. And so when we're doing Number Corner in the morning and you ask kids a question and there's an answer and they have to explain, it's different than mine, but one of those says explain their thinking,
Yeah.
and then we'll discuss, did someone think of it a different way? We found multiple pathways. And sometimes when kids will give the wrong answer, we'll critique and debate. And what I think is really remarkable is that we're standing here in the high school and they've got the same posters up. And so it's happening K-8 in our building, and it's also happening 9 through 12.
Well, it just started over here, and I have a student whose father teaches math here. And when they came in at the very beginning, Chris looked and went, oh, we've got the same things, you know. But what we have found, you'll see the slides later, because we do have these in the slides, but what we have found is that these types of skills blend into every subject area.
Applies throughout the
Yeah.
day.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
we will say, can you justify your reason for why you like that story? Can you explain your thinking? And so the children are just getting to where they just think and do it all the time.
Asking them to listen to understand. The first half of kindergarten was a big one.
What does
And then
listening
What
mean?
does it listening?
And then they revoice
Yeah, and
what
we-
they understand about what another student has
And they're
said to them.
using this language even as 5 and 6-year-olds in our classrooms, which is very exciting.
Right. And another component of the math program is workplaces. And workplaces are workstations that are games, and they're designed to make learning fun. And there's a progression with the workplaces through kindergarten, first, second grade. We have an example from each grade level.
So this is kindergarten. We have the numerals 0 through 10. And what they do is they spread them out on the table or on the floor. They usually do their stuff on the floor. And they take turns picking up a card. Okay, they have to fill 4. If 0 starts here, where's the 4 going to be? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So then they go here and they pick this up, and then they have, by the time they're done, they get them all in order.
Hopefully.
And they're really good at it. I mean, Allegra came in one time and the kids were looking at it upside down, but they were still able to figure it out because one was sitting across from the other. So they're looking at it upside down, but they were able then to get and they just take turns moving the cards around.
It looks
So-
like fun, I don't know.
You didn't
They-
let me take turns.
No, I didn't let you take.
I don't know, I haven't been tested.
And this is a first grade workplace. It's called Super Frogs. And
Want me to hold this up?
sure.
I
So this,
can't.
yeah, you could hold it up. So the students work with a partner, and they spin a spinner.
Wait, did you just cheat, Lee?
I did.
We're modeling first grade.
So they're practicing adding and subtracting by tens using a number line. And
So they're subtracting.
this one,
70
so they would
subtract.
start on 70 and subtract 30 and 20, 30. And they're supposed to say an equation, an expression along with this. So 70 minus 30 equals 40.
And some of them have sheets that they have to keep, that we
And
can check later.
And the one that, whichever one ends up on the bigger number gets to pick a cube because they like to compete. And so then at the end, whoever has more cubes is the winner. So that's the first grade. And then second grade has another one with a number line that it's a little bit of a different format. And this one is called Steps and Leaps. And so they also use the markers, start on 0, and whoever goes first rolls the dice and moves 7, And,
Yeah, you did. Yay!
they're supposed to record the number, and then their other child will go, and then on the next spin, leap 10. So if they're on 7, they have to know to add 10 and not on a decade number. So they're adding on a number line as well.
So then you have pictures up here of some of the stations that we have. These are polydrons, and the children are amazingly adept to making, they make three-dimensional shapes. I can't, for the life of me, I can't get them to stick together. They just keep saying to me, just stay with us, Mrs. Branch, we'll get you through this.
Allegra came in
They
one
are
day
hard.
when we were working on it, and she goes, "How do you do it?" And the kids finally taught her how to do it.
These are some first graders measuring. They're trying to figure out the length of a king penguin. So they know that a king penguin is, if I remember correctly, the king penguins are 45 inches.
45? They're not as big as the
They're
emperor.
16 or 18 inches, I forget, I think. But anyway, so they have to measure 16 inches and cut the string the right length. And they have to know where to hold the string, how to accurately measure it.
Okay, and then this
And they
is
love
second
pencil.
grade, and they're measuring using a king's foot. There's a book that, how big is a king's foot? And they read the book, and then they measure things according to the size of the king's foot. And then these are the best practices that we all have hanging in our room. And like we just explained to you, we use them throughout the day, not just for math. We also teach social studies and science. We call them social sciences now, but it's what we grew up with was the two separate ones, but it's now together. You have some second grade there trying to pick up ice cube using a string and salt, and how to make that work. And then in the beginning of the school year, we do a big thing with the community, and so that we have the community people come in. And so here's the chief of the police coming in and talking to the kindergartners.
Just remind me, he promised us a visit to the new police station,
Yeah.
I
so.
do remember that.
Yeah.
The other thing with the social sciences that we're doing is really integrating them into our literacy time, because we find the day isn't quite long enough to have a really big social science or science theme. So we're finding lots of good literature and nonfiction books and things, as well as having a time, but we're really immersing the kids in that during the day.
And then technology is another big piece that gets immersed in. So-
And it's really funny because today I said to the kids, we really need a picture of you using the smartboard and actually moving those cards where you can go up to the smartboard and just drag those letters usually. Well, this morning, poor little Quentin over there is sitting at the computer because we couldn't get those cards to move with our hands. We left the letter up at the top and the square came down. So some days that works for us, other days it doesn't.
We've learned to
But
play
it always
with it.
works if you use a mouse and go and click on it, you can drag it right down. So we use it with our tile boards on the rug with other kids, and they'll have someone at the computer and they're actually building words or doing sounds, letters, and that type of
I
thing.
keep telling you it's operator error.
Well, you know, that smart dummy smart board thing, it hasn't helped. And then a child over here is doing the Lexia program, which many of the kids in the primary wing are on, if not daily, at least every other day. There are also laptops at the kindergarten level that we were very, iPads, that we were very lucky to get a grant through Pi, and we have 6 iPads that we share in our classrooms so that we have them signed out to at certain times during the day. We all have computers in our classrooms that we use 3 or 4, depending on the
And
classroom.
smart boards.
And smart boards, and we love our smart boards.
And then we have unified arts. At the end, well, most of us have it towards the end of the day. Ours is very at the end of the day. The other ones come before us. But they go to music, they go twice a week, they go to art once a week, they go to PE twice a week, they go to library once a week. The first and second graders do French and Spanish.
Oui, oui.
So, they have fun.
They do.
They do.
They really love it.
We do too.
And we
Yeah.
do too.
Yes.
So we keep coming back.
So that basically is the day in the life of a primary student.
All hail to the.
We do the things we do best. Middle school kids for theater.
Yeah.
No. 76 middle school theater kids. No.
No way. Do you have any questions for us?
What are you wondering? Yeah.
I'm wondering two things. I never heard you say Common Core once.
Oh, we meant to.
Yeah, we meant to.
Or maybe
Well,
I may have
We
zoned
said
out.
it
We said it once. We
the
said it
common,
once.
Yes,
the
our
Common
math.
Core is.
But I
embedded
heard it
in
throughout.
Yes,
I heard
it
it
is.
It is
throughout
embedded.
everything.
One of the big pushes for the district is the nonfiction.
Yeah.
And so Betsy Knox has worked really hard to get us nonfiction books at the kids' level. They're just now coming out with books that kindergarten kids can read that are nonfiction.
Yeah.
But, so we're trying to build our libraries up with that kind of stuff. But we've spent more time on nonfiction, and if you ask most children, the librarian holds off as long as she can with the nonfiction area in the library, because she knows once she introduces it to the kindergartners, you can't get them back out of it.
Yeah.
You know, they're taking home the books about the snakes or the motorcycles or the kittens or whatever, whatever it is that they like, dinosaurs. But it seems to really have helped, especially the boys, because boys tend to not necessarily like fiction as much as they like the real stuff.
I think the other thing about the Common Core is that it's so deeply embedded in the programs that we're using. We chose programs that link to the Common Core, so that it isn't something we're not trying to make programs fit the Common Core,
Yeah,
or
it
vice
doesn't feel
versa.
forced.
No.
Right, no.
Right.
So our math program is linked to and
And
corresponds to the
the-
Common Core, and the new writing units of study that we've adopted link to the Common Core, and
The
foundation.
foundations links
Links
to the
to
Common
the
Core.
Common
So it isn't something we have to say, we don't have to talk about it in that way. When we do talk about it, and we try to make sure that what we're doing meets the standards that are outlined there, but I feel thankful and fortunate that we were able to use, adopt, pay for these programs that somebody already did that work.
And we're having the good training around those programs. So it's embedded in the training that we're getting. So I think we just kind of sometimes take it for granted that we're doing it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if you have kids, is it 2 or 3 first grade classes now? I can't remember.
Three.
Three. So you have 3 first grade classes on, let's just pick a date, on February 1st. Are most of the 3 classrooms, are the same lessons more or less being taught in the classrooms to the kids at the same time?
Pretty much. I would say within a few lessons.
Within a few lessons.
Yeah.
We
So like with the math,
communicate
that's
with each
pretty,
other.
that one is pretty.
I think that's the same in all
Plan
of
together.
them.
In our wing, yeah.
Yeah, that we are we're pretty close together in the math and in the literacy. I mean, you'll hear us in the hall every morning, what lesson are you on? So we try to stay pretty close together.
I'd say the one exception would probably be reading, simply because the differences between students are more obvious. And so while that whole group lesson that might be about how do you read a nonfiction text would be the same, if you and Colleen were in different reading groups because of your
Sure.
reading ability, your text would look different than hers, but the conversations would be similar.
Okay.
The only other thing that's different right now is that probably half of the K2, all of the kindergartens and 1 first grade class are teaching the updated versions of Foundations, which I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's true.
It sounds silly, but the sort of nitpicky things about it that they fixed were that the trick words, which are sort of the phonetically irregular words, in the old edition, you taught could in Unit 1, you taught should in Unit 5, and you taught the third one in a different unit, and in the updated version, those 3 words are all together. And hopefully next year, everybody K2 will have the updated version. And so, generally, we're all pretty much within the same, within 4 or 5 lessons.
But those that aren't in the new version are all in the old version staying together.
Right.
I guess my question was if kids in one classroom are offered some kind of a program or opportunity, all the other classes, the kids will be doing those as well.
Mm-hmm.
They should,
They should.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure, Kelly?
You mentioned about summer slump, and then I saw on the slide about the 2 children below standard. When you look at the program, the whole program, the K through 2 program, as a community, what can we do to help our students, other than, you mentioned summer slump, continue their education, be it over the summer or
vacations.
enrichment during the school year? Is there something you see that, we could do better as a community?
Parents have asked me, what can we do to increase? And I said, the biggest thing you can do is read with your child every day. Don't make it a 5-minute on the run here, but read with your child every day. Have your child see you reading. Have them read to you. If you're cooking dinner, have them read to you and read to their stuffed animals. Get them in the practice of doing it every day. Or have them in the practice of, if they're not reading, having them in the practice of looking at the books. Have them actually touching the stuff. There are books online, and they could do that, but I my preference is to actually hold the book.
And remember that our school library is open.
The school library is open during the summer, a couple days a week.
There's a summer school
There
program.
is a summer school program,
And
but
community.
that's limited as to how many children it can handle
Right.
at a time. But, for those families that, I suggest traveling, doing things together. I have a child that's on vacation. She said, what can we do? And I said, and writing, to improve her writing, have her keep a diary about, because her mom's going to be at a meeting, she's going to be with her grandparents, to tell you what she does during the day.
The other thing we did, Kelly, this year that was different is that we didn't assess kids right when they got back. We waited until the end of the month of September, because the fact of the matter is, I know all 4 of you, and I know that you lead literate lives, and your children lead literate lives, but your lives are busy in the summer, and you want to do those fun things, and so you may not always, read or write and do those things. But if the child has that skill when they leave school in June, they just need a little jump start to sort of get back into that vibe again, the school vibe, and so it doesn't take long to jumpstart that school energy again. So I think if we continue that over the next few years, I think the data will look a little bit different. If we assessed all kids in the first few days of school, all kids, they're gonna be like, well, what? They're still getting used to getting up and getting on the bus and being with a bunch of people and not having their own schedule, doing whatever they want to do. And I'd like to see how that looks over the next few years. I think that will give us a better, more accurate look at really where kids are when they come back to school in the fall.
And the assessment that kindergarten does is more just letting us know, where are they? We haven't seen these bodies before. We don't know. I mean, we may get snippets from daycares or preschool saying, oh, they can do this, this, and this, but what do they really know? We want to, so every time I sit down with them, you're just showing me what you know, so I know what to do next. So I can plan for what you need next. And so they very willingly sit down and they'll, and we try to make it as stress-free as possible.
They loved it this fall.
Yes, they did. And we did it, we didn't like how it went, but we actually did it the very first day of school. We've asked to back off the first day and do it, give us a couple days with the children before because we have to do our assessment one-on-one. And so they were busy doing other things with the Part 2 people, and we were pulling the children and doing these assessments. We got great information, I had it all done the first day, but it was like, then Tuesday or Thursday, we were then starting in with the kids, and we would rather get with the kids, get the routine going, then do it. So.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I've been on a little memory lane here, and just want to say, comment-wise, always have felt really strongly that we have such a solid kindergarten, first, second grade group of teachers. So thank you for always doing such great work. I'm curious though, different now than when my children were in your grades, is the technology and the use of technology and the use of iPads. Do you see that as impacting kids wanting to hold books, read books, use books versus
Some.
being on the iPad?
Sometimes. I mean, I pulled out a tape recorder a couple weeks ago, and they said,
Till here, let
What's
Jeff
that?
hear you say
"What's
that.
that?" And I went, "This is called a tape recorder. This is something I used to use when I was at school." Oh, it's really old, you know. But I mean, some of that.
As long as you keep the overhead projector in the closet.
You know, some of that old stuff does get pulled out every once in a while.
Yeah.
But the kids know that the technology is there. I mean, they actually, our two classes with the Ocean worked with our librarian, and they did a mini research project, and they've made a presentation so we can share our research with each class. You know, does it
But
look?
do you think it impacts their, like, I mean, I just have.
I think
my
it's
kids
going to.
Loving to read, and maybe not so much with my third one, but seeing that love of books and just.
I'm
curious about that.
hoping it doesn't. That is my fear when they
Yeah.
keep pushing, you know, so much technology.
I don't think so.
But so far, at least in our grade, if we pull out a book, if they're out of control, I pull out a book and start reading, and the whole room just calms down.
Quiet, they're engaged.
No, they're just, you know.
I think it's largely how you present books.
Yeah.
And in the books that you choose, I'm curious, if Ziggy came home, well, there was a day that I said, okay, boys and girls, raise your hand if you like books about fairies. And probably 2/3 of the class were like, oh, no, I don't like that. I said, okay, that's great. Well, I'm gonna read you a book about fairies. And it was the Spiderwick Chronicles. And if you haven't read that series of books, do, because even as an adult, they're fun.
Yeah.
And so the fairies, some of them are a little on the scary side. They're edgy. They're not pink and purplicious and whatever. And so by the end of the first book, I asked the kids, all right, who likes books about fairies? Bam, every hand shot up in the air. And you read with expression and a quiet voice, a scary voice. And so you can develop a love of books in any child, whether they will pick them up and do it as a recreational activity. I can't always say for sure, but you certainly can hook them at our grade.
Well,
grades.
at the beginning of the year, we did a whole thing on the different versions of the gingerbread stories. And so I had on the wall the different versions, the characters and all this kind of stuff. And one of my girls the other day said, when are we gonna do this again with some other books?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay.
And we're just in the end stage of reading the Red Clover nominees, and I mean, we couldn't get them out of the books in my classroom. I mean, they were like holding them and walking around the room and finding a quiet place to read. I do have kids that love to listen to a book on the computer because they can go to the library resources and bring up kindergarten type books to listen to. But those are the kids that are having trouble reading books and haven't had a whole lot of exposure. So the exposure with us giving the books to their hands, but then letting them have someone read a book to them and have them be able to sit and listen to it, that's been powerful for a handful of kids in my classroom.
Some of us also.
And I have a Kindle, and I don't think there's anything wrong with reading on the computer either.
Yeah.
If you're waiting at the doctor's office, pull it up on your phone. I'm still reading.
iPad becomes their book.
I guess I'm
That's
more
a great
concerned
question.
about those kids that's all they
Great
talk
question.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
And if I say, what did you do over the weekend? Oh, I played this.
We.
Right.
I did, you know, and if that's all they're doing, you know, that would make me concerned. But at school, that's not all they're doing. So they know there's other things out there. And right now, we're reading for the Olympics, reading for the gold, and they have to count their minutes each night. And so some of my parents are going, good grief, we read for an hour last night, because they wanted to get 60 minutes. They want that gold medal. So.
Lisa, one of the things I can see that's different is I have a daughter in Eunice's class, and they have this program called Lexia, which is a very broad literacy program. It's not.
It's more of a phonics type program type thing. It teaches the skills.
But one of the things that I see different is if you had sent home, say, a worksheet and it was about the sh sound, that worksheet, we would have lasted on that, maybe 5 minutes. Lexia, she can get into Lexia and sit on it for 20 minutes. It is engaging, the movement on the screen, the way it takes her from that sound to the ch sound, and now she's doing another sound. And she masters that sound, and then she only goes on it for maybe, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes, and it starts getting too hard, and she X's out. And I was in one day, and recently in Eunice's class, she said one of our stations is Lexia, And what do?
They log themselves in, they've got
They
themselves
cheer.
where they,
I mean-
yeah, Lexia, here we go.
Yeah. It's, I mean, and when I think of the summer slump, I'd love, the, like, Alexia program or something
That will be still
yeah.
available.
in math and I'd like to see the same thing in math where kids over the summer say they're so enthused about their education, or their parents really, or maybe they're the ones that aren't up to standard, that it's a tool, that it's not just a game on the web that's a free game that does your addition. It's broader, it feeds you guys back. I mean, what Lexia does for you guys is it feeds back to the teachers alerts on, okay, she's struggling here.
Mhm.
I mean, that is the first I have K through 8 right now in that school, a K, a 4, an 8. The first time I've seen technology flipping the classroom, that term flipping the classroom is in with that Lexia program,
Well,
where
in
a
second
kid
grade,
could coast
yeah.
and be trucking at their own pace, doing their own curriculum, right? And another kid could trip, and Eunice could see, I got an alert, I need to work with that kid one-on-one on something. That is a powerful use of technology, and that's why I like to see it used. I don't like to see it for, say, let's go on and play, I don't know, a video.
Car racing.
Car racing, PBS Kids, or whatever those, I don't like that. I want it all education at school.
I think one of the nice spots is on our webpage, if you go, is it under curriculum? And you can go in as a parent to those, the fast math and all of those. Our second graders are really into the fast math. I mean, there's banners have been made, they're handed out that once a month.
have the feedback like the lexicon?
I believe the teacher can get a
Yeah.
feedback.
Oh, the
to
teacher
that.
can
Tell you,
Yeah.
it doesn't last through fifth grade.
Not like Lexia. Lexia is a
They go on and check
broad.
the scores.
Yeah.
They're well aware
Yeah.
of where they are.
What I noticed with Alexia this last week is I had to do a dictation to see how well I read them a sentence word by word and they had to write it. And as I was doing one of the words, the word was R, and one of my boys was writing, he said R. Oh, I remember that was on Lexia. And he did it, but he did it backwards. He did the R, and he did the E, and then the R, and then the A. But he made the connection, I've learned that somewhere. And that's the kind of stuff we want them to be able to make those connections and to retrieve knowledge that they have.
And I imagine programs like that cost the district money as
Yes.
opposed to something on the web. But
Yes.
the quality of the program of Alexia or alike in a math program, I mean, you as a parent, you see it, the quality of the program.
And the nice thing, Kelly, is you can do that at home.
Absolutely, on my
You have your
iPad, not even,
child's
I mean, for.
log in and can do it
Right,
from
and
your
for a
computer
5 or
at
a
home, too.
6-year-old, it's on the couch on the iPad. It's not on a desktop computer that's uncomfortable.
Right.
That's great.
But if my child doesn't do Lexia in kindergarten, can we still do it? Because this is
We
one
have
of
to
those.
we have to have the literacy person put the child's name in, they have to be logged in.
That's an easy thing.
Yeah, but
So is that an inconsistency between the classrooms in kindergarten with 4 classrooms using it and mostly only 2 really having access?
The other ones, they have to get their kids on. There has been discussion about.
So it has to be a parent requesting?
Not necessarily, the teacher has to, I went to the teacher. Originally, Lexia is geared for those children that are struggling. And so when they moved me to first grade, I never used it in kindergarten, because I was always under the impression it started at first grade. So when I was working with Cheryl Aishan, I said, okay, I need to get some children, I guess, on Lexia. Well, I put those kids on that needed it, and then within 2 or 3 days, the rest of the kids were saying, well, wait a minute, when are we gonna get on this? They were doing other things on the computer, but they weren't doing that. So then I went to Betsy and said, is this available for everybody? So I initiated it for myself.
Just this year.
But it wasn't.
No, I
but it
initiated
wasn't
back in
available-
first grade, and then this year I found out it was kindergarten, I said, I want them all on.
It was not available because at one time we only had something like 9 licenses.
Right.
And so if you had to prioritize, it was originally designed for at-risk students, so we had to prioritize for at-risk students.
But now it's available
I
to
think we've
anybody.
got a lot more I think we could, 100 licenses or something.
Because
I'm sorry, what?
Is it a budgetary thing where we're limited on, because my student wasn't aware of it, and the impact with technology for my family is that both of my daughters in kindergarten and second grade now want an iPad. And they said, when are we gonna get one? And I think there are some really great tools that are available online, but in general, I want to encourage more books and creativity, and I feel like there's gonna be plenty of time for them to want the games and the coloring. You know, we have crayons and we have, and so, but that's one of those things that if we had access to it, I would like her to spend time with that, because I also find that.
I would say talk to the teacher and ask to have them come.
Well, and I wouldn't have known about it until recently, and I found out that my daughter's kind of an outlier in the class in that there's no other peer where she is in reading, and so I see it helping the end who are struggling, but also helping in that with your ability to differentiate.
I think the other thing is, you have to remember, we only have 3 desktop computers, like in my classroom. So my kids have to be able to sign into the computer themselves, or I get them set up the first group, but then they go tap somebody on the shoulder that goes over and X's totally out of everything and logs off, so then it takes teacher time. So we really have to get them to the point in the classroom that they're able to function through this, because we're doing guided reading groups and we're doing stations.
Kristen, we need to
Okay.
move on. But thank you all.
You're very
Yeah,
welcome.
Yeah, thank you, this has been really informative, and it's been.
Jessica, how do I get
Thank
that?
you.
Longer. You're welcome. It was fun.
Can I just
It was fun.
You too.
Yeah, so fun.
And we'll mess up any.
We're such a team.
We are.
Forgive me for eating, I'm sorry.
It's okay, the whole town is watched, but it's fine.
Is the writing still over with you, Allegra?
Do we need to exit out?
We could talk about this with you for hours.
Yeah.
Well, I can just see you just do so much together.
I know, isn't it great?
It's really.
We love each other.
Did they get their
We
material?
love each other
Yeah.
too.
I know. In fact, they all came out tonight, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's kind of fun to have K through 8.
And I'll raise you first and 12th.
First
This was my
kindergarten teacher.
She reunited first and
Senior.
Oh, wow.
No, not mine.
All right,
Oh, well, I have
Colleen?
mine now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Colleen, are you ready?
I will be ready for you.
Are you ready?
Thanks so much. It's great to see you guys. Yeah.
5.0.
Bye, guys. Bye.
home day.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Bye, thank you.
See you later.
Principal's report?
Yep.
So I can kind of go through it. Allegra's just stepped out just to follow up on giving them the opportunity to continue the Lexia conversation tomorrow.
Okay.
You've all received the principal's report. And I think the way that we usually do it is just to highlight a couple of things, and if there's any questions that you have about any of the items. The newsletter that went out today, it's been a very busy month, and seeing how this is, it kind of encapsulates many of the weeks here. Onto the principal's report.
Great.
Okay.
So I think you,
Kind of,
yeah,
if they have any
I know we need to
questions,
go quickly. Do you have
yeah.
any questions?
The only
or-
thing I, given the communication, so I didn't follow what's going on with the musical. The musical is happening, I'm assuming.
yeah.
And,
There it is.
and that there's just right now a conflict of being able to get into the gymnasium, or?
No,
I wasn't clear.
if
on
you want,
this.
I can highlight it in 30 seconds. She's right, the basketball program is there
Yeah.
for many months, and, it's just hard with very growing after-school program of 70 plus now, not to have that space when you can't go outside.
Right.
So I received an email that said that the theater program was now gonna be in from the time we got back from break until the performance, and I saw the performances in the middle of April.
Right.
So I wrote to Lori and I said, how did that work last year? And she said, we just coordinated, and there was never an issue.
Lori is,
Lorian was the director of the program
Yeah.
last year, and a new director this year. So I wanted clarification, so I wrote her an email and said, can you let me know if this is how it was last year? And it got met with a very long email response. I wasn't
So
I
it's gonna
wasn't
be able to be-
questioning that, I was
It's gonna
just
be able to be
asking.
worked out.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, you know, I think the piece that I, when we do sit down with Karen and Danielle, it's really taking a look at, I loved what the 3rd and 4th grade musical became. You know, and that was really small, short, and I think it was perfect. So I think, you know, one of the conversations I wanna have is about the size and the scope of the program, because it is an 8-month program, as she alluded to. And is that typical? I kind of,
Because they had the 2 different productions.
is that what she's referring to?
No, not the 3 foot, this is just for 5/8.
I mean, it's
It's
just,
8 months for the 5/8?
They work on it a long time.
it goes, so I guess from my point of view is I kind of want to get a sense of what other
Right.
schools have for
Right.
a middle school musical. I want to stay within the realm. It just does seem like a long time, and, you know, having the administrative hat and the Part 2 hat, parents are paying a lot of money for the Part 2 program. And I completely hear that they're both school-run programs, but I have to advocate for both as well. You know, the theatrical program is fantastic. I can see Lexi in, you know, to my 107 years doing something like that. But at the same point in time, there has to be an even balance, and it's never been an issue.
But I'm just curious, and this is really not, but when we did the renovations and we did the whatever, the cafeteria, and we did the wall, and we did all that, so that's not meeting.
No, 70 kids is a lot.
No, I realize for 70 kids, but how about for Part 2? How many kids are in the Part 2 after?
70
Oh,
kids.
that's the 70 kids, you're not the
Yeah.
theater kids.
Right.
Also, I mean, remember the school is growing, we're adding classrooms,
Yeah,
we're
that's-
using all these
Right.
spaces, so as Heinsberg gets bigger, spaces that maybe were easily available are
Right.
not so much now, because, you know, they're being used, there's just, and I think storage is a problem in any school you go to, and one of the, I was just talking about with some teachers today, is we need to get a dumpster at the end of the year, and people need to start purging things, because teachers are real hoarders, you know, they don't want to, there's not much money to buy stuff in the budget, so when they buy something, they hold on to it, because they could use it someday.
For 30 years.
Right, so, but I think we need to do that in order to see, can we get some more space that way if we really look to get things?
I think Karen made, not knowing the whole story,
Right.
some interesting comments. And first of all, I don't know where the 8 months for the theater program comes from. My daughter Julie's doing the theater program. She started practicing like a month ago.
Right.
And it ends in March. And that's the same length as a basketball season, I think. And I think two things, in our sports-centric culture, and my other daughter is a sports
Right.
person, you know, it seems to me, I don't want to be the institution where sports always take precedent over everything else, first of all.
Right.
Secondly, I think there is a big difference, although Part 2 is a school program. I think in my mind, there is a big difference between that, where parents are choosing to keep their kids in school after school and they're paying for a service, versus something like a basketball team or a theater production. I can't articulate to you exactly what it is, but to me, I don't think they are equal. And I don't think that the theater program should be subservient to Part 2.
But I
I
don't think that's the way it's been playing
I
out,
mean,
though, really. But
You know, we all understand what Part 2 brings to it. I mean, you know, you could look at it that it helps support the theater program. I mean, and, you know, and again, this is cutting a little close, but, you know, I think the other piece is, that we've never once argued about space. You know, we've always been able to work it out. Our people at Part 2 are amazingly flexible, the most
Absolutely.
flexible people you'll ever see. You know, we had a mentor dinner there last night. They crammed, you know,
And the third grade performance.
the
and
third,
I mean,
you know, they're
Yeah.
but and it's not only, we have 15% of our Part 2 families that are subsidized, and it's not really a parent choice. It's a very essential need for those students. So
But But I wonder if down the road, I mean, I don't think it's the immediate need, if we are really bumping up against kind of what we've chosen to have for after-school programs as an offering, basketball, theater, whatever, if we shouldn't be looking at the church or town hall or something to do, to move, or even the
I'd
new
move the-
community police station to, isn't there a community room in there or something? I thought there.
Can I offer that this should maybe be put on a future agenda?
Yeah.
I feel it was a very long presentation from a community member about a topic I knew nothing about ahead of time. And then we're being asked to sort of respond. I feel like, I don't feel prepared to have a conversation about this.
And I'm not asking you to have a conversation, Colleen, but I am, we're talking about the principal's report, there's a piece about the theater, it sounds like that's gonna be worked out, but in the future, that might be, if it's becoming an issue for space, that might be an option of looking at alternative space.
And I know Kathy's not here, the facilities committee is gonna meet, because, I mean, that's the other piece, is that the theater is our gym.
Yeah, no, I get it. I have one other quick question. Just in terms of the numbers, I'm a little confused. This says that we have a total of 535, but on the flyer that we put out, it was 498.
One's
Triple E.
Triple E is not on the flyer?
Triple E is not on the flyer.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was curious about.
So I don't know if, when you receive this electronically, I just wanted to point out number 5, the classroom blog. A lot of teachers are doing this now at this time of year, having kids write it. And when I read that one by this kid, I just started smiling. It just really made me smile. So if you do get it electronically, if you can click on that link to just look at that and how the kids summarized, this second grade boy summarized his week and what they were doing. I hope it makes you smile too. He's very proud of what he was doing. And 100th Day is a big day at our school. That was really fun. There's been a lot of music concerts going on. And the Penguin Plunge, I did not participate. Mr. O'Hara did participate. I jumped in the lake once in April, and that was about as close as I wanted to get to February. So, but it was great. And kudos to Paul Lasher for helping to organize that. And they did really well.
$9,000.
Yeah. So it was really great.
And the mentor dinner, because it is so fresh in my head, they had 120 people there last night.
That's amazing.
And, it just speaks to the level of community involvement, and it's just pretty awesome to see.
Right. So, and just also just to clarify some other enrichment stuff, if you'll notice, we do now have a chess club that's happening. The GOB happened, and it seems like there's been some other things going on. We are trying to look at enrichment and what other things can we offer kids after school. As well as the rec department is always using our building too for things that which is great, should be used. Okay?
Since Bill was the only one who was, of the 4 of us that wasn't there, anyone want to say anything about it? We had a very good presentation about supervision and evaluation from one of the co-principals in Charlotte, and is it one of the building principals in Williston?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jack,
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, I knew I heard she was from Williston, but I didn't hear whether she was
Yep.
the total elementary principal or just one of the buildings, okay. Is she in the other one than Walter?
Yeah, and Allenbrook has another one.
Okay.
And a risk management
Oh, yeah,
presentation
and we talked about
by Mike
insurance.
Corbin and, yeah. Those are the highlights.
There you go.
I'm sure you guys got it covered, so.
Thank you. 5.3, financial management report. You gonna handle that?
Bob had to step out.
Shall we come back?
Completely unprepared to talk.
Why don't we skip and we'll come back if need be.
Okay.
5.4 facilities. Kathy is under the weather, so she's not gonna give a report. Does anyone else wanna speak to it?
And we have not met in, probably 6 to 8 weeks, but and now I'm remembering that we haven't met as a board in quite a while. So we do have another meeting scheduled. Allegra and I have met with our town manager on an occasion. Just talking about the housing developments, we've looked into what are they called? The impact fees. So if there's a development that is in excess, that would mean that we would have to add on to our building. So we've had those discussions, but really we're at this stage now where we're gonna have somebody come in and just take a look to see if we did have to do any type of expansion, what would make the most sense. And that Bob could speak more to it. In the expansions that he has done in the past, it's always good to get somebody in initially, and Bob Mason is always part of our facilities meetings. So.
I did go to the Haystack meeting last night, and I think it was in the staff report, it's made a comment that the town's development staff were talking with representatives from the school, so I was happy to see that.
Great.
What's the Haystack meeting?
The new project on the west side of 116 across
That's what it's
from,
called.
yeah.
I don't know if did anything come up at that meeting about the water, the lack of water?
Yeah, it's very clear
Okay.
that no project can be built and hook into Heinsberg's water system until the state and Heinsberg come to some sort of resolution on what to do.
Okay.
We're at capacity, so no one's hooking into that until someone, I think, I don't know, my supposition was someone's gotta pay to expand the facility.
Dig a new well.
Because that might delay I guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, is it might delay the process.
And I think what was said at the meeting and by either the town staff or a member of the DRB is that developers who want to build projects are well aware of that issue.
Okay.
Has there been any further discussion about the sidewalk? And where are we as a board with that?
I went to the meeting, right? I stayed our case and they voted to put the sidewalk in. That's where we stand, it's going, it's coming.
So now it's just that we have to figure out a way to ensure safety with our students.
So I asked them, I asked the select board, were they prepared to put a policeman out of their budget on the crosswalk, and I got blank stares, so.
So as a board, is it something that we continue to pursue?
I think there's already, from what my understanding is, there was already money spent for, I don't know if the right word is impact study or traffic studies and architectural design that was done. And so they felt at this late stage that it was, I mean, you were there, Bill.
Well, essentially, what happened is that they didn't go forward with the project, there was a design fee that the
Right,
state
that's what
covered,
it
and
was.
if they didn't go through the project, the town had to pay the design fee.
Right.
And one of the select board members said, well, that's not a reason to do a bad project, just because we gotta pay 20 grand in design fees, you know, what, is that a reason to go forward? You know, so that was, they had that discussion, so that-
Okay.
I mean, my concept is that the majority of the board decided it was gonna happen, and, you know, or if they asked for an input, they didn't want it, so.
Right.
Well, when the board signed off that letter, we were told that that intersection was going to be a T, not as what you described as a zipper. But we were told at the time that it was going to be a T. A T to me is, there's a clear intersection and there are right angles.
Yeah.
The final word, and we're gonna move on, is they referred to a letter from Paul Emerson and signed. So of course I called Paul. Paul had no recollection. And it was a generic letter of, do you support getting kids to walk to school safely? Well, of course.
Well, it's in the materials from 2007, but and my point is that when we talked about it as a board, we were told
Understood.
that it was gonna be a T, and that's not a T.
Right, it's not.
Yeah,
And
that
then-
letter was signed off on, even if it was just a generic letter, prior to the changes in the current intersection.
Right.
and anybody who drives their kids to school, me being one of them, it's a nightmare, because you're just praying that the sun doesn't hit your windshield in a way where you are completely blinded of that intersection. I mean, there's every morning, if the sun hits your windshield just right, you can't even see that intersection.
Well,
Wow, I
there's-
didn't even think about
See,
that.
there's the intersection that's the worry, but it's also the entrance and the
The
exit
horseshoe.
of the,
Right,
yeah.
right,
And
but I
that,
just-
that piece, I mean, we've had a lot of parent feedback on people parking along the curb, you know, people scooting around, kids coming out. That piece has been a worry for me for 4 years, and now there's the intersection, but then there's also that entrance and exit that are now into play. I mean, we really do need 4 crossing guards now, next year.
Or we don't put any on.
I don't know how we do
Or we
that.
make people drop off down at the lower lot or something, I don't know.
It'll never happen.
But if you put, oh, I don't know.
But
I mean,
again,
there'd be
it's-
there's the opportunity for parents to take it, to walk their kids to
Right.
school, but,
Right.
you know, it's gonna be very tricky. And I think, whoever said, do we fight what, I go on, I don't know if we have an official go on record that
I
we're
just wonder if
opposed.
it's something to bring to PI for discussion, and, we've stated our position. If nobody knows about it and then they see it happen and they're like, what's wrong with the board for agreeing with that? That could be problematic.
Well, I have 2 responses. We are on record, that's why we wrote
Right,
that
right,
letter.
right.
And PI is aware of it, because I
Right.
told them in January.
Right.
And the turnaround time, from what I understand, is it's gonna be done in the summer.
Yeah, but it is.
So I mean, it's like, boom. Might be a little too dramatic, but it is happening quickly.
I think we request the select board come up with funding to pay for guards.
Mhm.
I think that might be an official letter.
They'll tell us, well, I think one of the statements that I've heard before is that it's either a state road or it's not a state road, I always forget.
Well,
where
It
it
is.
116 State Road, Silver Street isn't though.
But that crossing piece is piece of the state, like, that's the response that we got, is that it's not their responsibility.
Perhaps it can be something that's brought up at town meeting.
Could be. All right, Technology Committee? Are you on that?
I am, but in name only, that 3 o'clock meeting time just kills me, so
Okay.
I missed it one more time.
Okay. All right, keep going then. 6.0, discussion matters. Budget informational meeting preparation. I circulated earlier today some copies of slides that Allegra and Jeff have spent a lot of time preparing. And I sat with them earlier this week. My God, that was only Monday. It was 2 days ago. I sat with them for a little bit 2 days ago to go over them, and I think they're in very good shape. And, given that we have a different style of meeting this year, I'm content with them. I mean, they're the basis for a story. They're not all the information that we could present, but there's lots of information that we have available to us in other materials or in our heads that we can use to supplement as we're discussing them or answering questions.
How long, are we from 6 to 7 on that agenda? Or?
I believe we are 6 to 7. The town was supposed to start at 7, but I think I saw something that might have said that they warned it for 7:30.
It's always been 7:30.
Well, there was a request at the meeting last year to start it earlier because it went until
Okay.
11 or 11:30, and
Okay.
people wanted it to end a little earlier.
So we're supposed to plan for an hour meeting.
I think we should plan for an hour meeting.
I think the presentation that you forwarded is fine. I think it should be short and so that people can ask questions.
Oh, the other key information that I should convey is about a third of those slides are CVU slides.
Yeah, I noticed
Because we need to talk about CVU now because our meeting is before the CVU vote. Leah cannot come, so Ray is supposed to come. If he comes, I'm gonna ask him to present those slides and take any CVU-related questions. If he is not able to come, then we'll just skip them, because I'm not prepared
Right.
to talk
We're
about
not doing
CVU's
CVU.
budget.
And Bob Mason had mentioned that he'll talk about the slides that pertain directly to HGS and the impact on the taxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If need be.
Wait
Yeah,
a minute,
right.
I missed that somehow, and I didn't look through this yet.
Keep going.
We're presenting CVUs?
No, we're not.
We're not. A
Oh.
CVU board member from Heinsberg is going to present the CVU information
Okay.
that's in that slide package.
And they're not having their own?
They are having their own, but that is the way it's done in other
Right.
SU towns.
They have their own meeting in this room or whatever it is, and then they're gonna come to our meeting and co-present?
Yeah.
So they're presenting twice, once to an empty room and once to
Yes.
10 people?
And that, and it is by circumstance that it's literally the same room or in the same facility for us in Shelburne. You know, the CVU presentation is part of the Shelburne's meeting in whatever room they're in Shelburne. So, yes, you remark how it's the same information presented an hour later. That's because of the circumstance of our logistics being at CVU.
Yeah, I think,
But the same process plays out in the other towns where there's a CVU meeting at 5 and there's a town meeting in Charlotte, Shelburne, and Williston, where that same CVU information is presented there as it was at 5 o'clock here.
okay.
Because it's still part of the same story.
Yep.
Which is all about taxes.
Essentially, yeah.
And I guess the only other thing to highlight is that, in years past, as long as I've been here, Bob has had a good portion of the presentation. And we're asking Keith to really take a lead and, then be available for questions if they come up from the audience.
Because Bob's gonna be in Shelburne.
I'm sorry, Bob Goodrow
Oh,
has had a large part in
And Bob
years
Mason will
past.
be with us.
okay.
Sorry.
Again, I think in our discussions, my take on it is that the format and purpose of the meeting is now completely changed.
Right.
It's not an annual meeting anymore.
Right.
It's not a where are we, how did we get here discussion anymore to the community. It's really an informational meeting about the budget.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think it's still an opportunity to highlight some of the good stuff that's going on in our school. It's an annual meeting about what happened in the prior year and where are we now and where do we anticipate going and how does the budget support that vision. I think it is about our school. It's not just about dollars, you know. Even the town meeting, you know.
Right, I tend to agree with Colleen. I think we shouldn't start right with, this is where we are in terms of our budget. I think we should have kind of just an overview, and I think it is appropriate that the principals give an overview of what we did in the past year. What are the highlights of the past year? That's what we did last year. I mean,
And that's what we get at the
A couple
town
of
meeting.
slides.
People, you know, if anyone comes to the school meeting plus the town meeting, they would wonder why the school didn't do the same thing.
I just know, I believe that in other schools, we're talking about the annual meeting and how it might look different than in years past. We took a lot of, we listened to how things were done because this is new to us in other schools. And it sounds as if, in the other schools, if I'm speaking correctly, or accurately, that the school board chair really takes it from beginning to end with principals being there in support of questions and answers. So that was kind of our mindset going in. They were asking if there should be a kind of a state of the school in the beginning.
Well, you know, reports to the board, that part of it, reports to the board. You know, it is about kids, it is about the school. It doesn't, you know, who does that? That's, you know, a separate discussion. But the content, I do think that we need to talk about what's going on in our schools. You know, just for example, the supervision and evaluation common topic presentation, the walkabouts that principals do. I mean, the description of what happens in a school on a day-to-day basis is quite different from what most adults sitting in the audience would be familiar with. And so if we have an opportunity to talk about how school is a little bit different, you know, what it looks like, how teachers are working together in teams, how they're, you know,
Yeah, I think
different tiers of support, not going too deep, but just something.
I think we, you know, I agree with you to a certain degree, Colleen. I think if we get into, you know, even tiers of education, we're gonna lose about 90% of them. I think what would, you know, when you think of what they do at the town meeting, there's kind of a state of the state, like an overview of the highlights of what really went well, from each of the departments, and I think we do need that, in addition to getting right into, like I liked how you put in the opportunities for people to give public input, how many times we met, all of that kind of information was really good. I think part of our story has to be we are a growing school. I mean, that has to be front and center and beat that drum, because we're a growing school and we're cutting.
And people are going to ask about the white building, and we're not ready to answer
Right.
that again. You know, so
Well,
we need to give,
I think the
we
answer
need to
is
give some other
that's
stuff.
that's under study. You know, that's where we are. It's under study.
So I'm happy to put together whatever the board wishes. I just need a little direction. Because, you know, I know that one of
Are you trying
Keith's-
to pull up last year's?
I'm trying to pull up the warning to see.
One of Keith's good suggestions was exactly what you just said, is that the enrollment is increasing. So when we took a look at the presentation, he said these two slides need to be right after the mission. So I mean, I think as he tells the story, he's gonna really highlight that we are one of the very few schools that are growing, and there's specific reasons for that. Now, if we wanna get into more of the state, you know, what state of the school, what are the things that we're doing that could potentially be factors in that increase? We could,
Well, I mean, the budget is about education. The budget is about the services that we're providing for kids. The budget is about the professional development, the people that the town employs and so forth. So what is it that the budget's supporting? I mean, what is the programming that we're trying to move forward? I would always want to make the case that budgets support activity. Whether it's adult activity or kid activity and whatever that might be.
I take a look at those first slides that Bob used, and just in terms of, I mean, everything from, you know, just highlights. I can't even think, you know, the theater program, you know, what in the past year did we really celebrate? And there's gotta be a few of those out there, more than a few.
well, I guess that's what I'm wondering is do you want a little bit of academic, do you want a little bit of?
A little bit of everything, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, just to kind of really give a
It's not
feel
more
of this
than
is where we are as a school, and this is the culture of our school, and we're really proud of our school, because, you know, I think that people are moving to Heinsberg partially because it's a vibrant place to live, and the school's the center of that.
If you're in an elevator and you're going up to let's let you go all the way up to the 20th floor, what's the elevator conversation about the school? That's what we want to say.
Yeah, I think it needs to be brief, and then, you know, the nitty-gritty about, I mean, people will have their whatever, their books or whatever, wherever
Yeah.
the budget is, and they will be saying, okay, tell us about this principal line that has an increase of 30% or whatever it has. Wasn't that last year? Yeah. Did I get it correct? But
Office of the Principal.
I'm not saying, you know, if there's any outliers like that, we might want to address that before, but if they're not, you know, we'll just be prepared to respond to those.
I'm thinking if we're gonna do this, just thoughts, what you asked us, what you might wanna see in it, I'm just thinking what people hot buttons are, so if we've moved, the slide they had there, the first one, we had 71 that were at those sorts of things, and grade levels, like we've made many more kids at a higher grade level. If that's easy without going too deep into the weeds, that's stuff people like to see. They're like, oh, well, there's half, 2 years ago, half the fifth graders weren't at level. This year, 70% of fifth graders are at level. If that's easy, that might be the kind of thing you might want to put in there. I don't know if that's too deep in the weeds or not.
It's all about timing. If I could offer what I think is the solution, then
I'd love to hear it.
coming in halfway through, so this may not work as well as I'd like it to. But Keith has the core of a presentation right there, and I think it starts with kind of the fact that you're asking them for budget approval, and then in the middle there's a piece on what's going on in the school, and then the end is the hard sell on what you're actually asking them to approve. I think you stick with that structure. I think what you've all chimed in on is the middle 5 or so slides from Allegra and Jeff kind of need to sell the sizzle, if you will. What's going on in the school that says whatever they asked for in the last 10 slides we really ought to get behind. But you leave the beginning and end of what you've got there kind of already in place. But you just expand. I think we've got 2 or 3 slides in there. You add a few more to add some more.
There's a slide on enrollment history, and there's a slide on class sizes. So
Yeah, we add some stuff there.
If you can add some slides, great. Otherwise, I'll introduce them, and then I can ask you guys to, elaborate.
I don't see anything in here that says we're so darn proud of our school because this is what we do. I don't see that in here.
Let me give you a little backstory.
I'm just being,
No.
trying to make my case. That we
And I'm really trying to figure out,
And I don't
not
think
only.
we can do that via PowerPoint, Colleen. I don't want to PowerPoint people to death.
When
I think we can talk to them.
No,
and
we
my
have reductions here, but we don't say what we're doing. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, my sense was not only being a new principal, but also going to a new format. I was talking with my colleagues in the other schools to say, how have you done it? What does it look like? Things like that. And then I've asked the person who does a lot of data in our school, and I said, for this annual meeting, give me exactly what Bill just said. Give me where we've gained an SES, IEP, the whole gamut. We put together points of pride for that flyer that went out and things like that. So when I took a look, we have all the information, and then I guess where I landed through a bunch of different conversations is that, and this might be ill-conceived, but I really felt like the format, which I haven't seen yet, was strictly about budget and numbers, and that's why you see the budget. All of this stuff that you've talked about is very easy for me to put together 2 or 3 slides. So if I'm hearing you that you would like a little taste of everything, the academic, the enrichment, what does this budget support? The why and the how, and that stuff.
There are amazing things happening in that school.
Yeah.
I almost amend what you said, Bob, in that I think we need, first of all, I think it's important to have our community see who our principals are. I mean, I think that is a statement to have them present, even just to say, welcome, we're so proud to be principals of this great school. Let us we're going to spend 2 minutes to give you an overview of the exciting things that have been happening in the past year. We scored this in the science kneecaps. We did this, whatever those bullets are. And now let me turn it over to this guy
Can I
to
offer
go
that they
through.
not even be part of the PowerPoint? That if we really wanted to have it be a story, that we can just stand up and say those things and talk about that, and then get down to the business with the PowerPoint. If you want to.
Visual learners, though.
It's going to be crowded. I mean, I think there people will come for the, well, maybe not. Maybe they won't. You don't think they'll come before the regular meeting? You don't? I was thinking of the regular meeting where it's pretty
I
full.
would be surprised if we're 20.
Okay. I kind of thought it would be
Disappointingly, but-
the regular
So,
group.
someone just give me the clarification on.
I think that's up to you guys. If you feel more comfortable doing it without, I'm speaking for everybody now. I don't mean to be.
I don't think we can. I just was offering another
Yeah.
suggestion,
Yeah, no,
because
I
I think we do need to, the purpose of this meeting is to look at the budget,
But we gotta sell it.
right, I agree
Part of
that.
selling it is,
Yep.
what am I spending my money on?
Right.
How does the money support activity?
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
remember though, we've already started all of that, though. We've started by doing that budget flyer. We've started, there's gonna be a boards corner, whatever, in the record. I mean, I think
And we're gonna
we need to
repeat
remember
it
that.
in the presentation. We're gonna
Mhm.
hit people 3 times, or
Mhm.
4 times, whatever it is, in the
Okay.
same. And short, it can be short.
So so if I could summarize, if I'm hearing this right, you'd like a couple of, 2 to 3 slides that really highlight the things that are happening in the school. And then during the actual presentation, Keith and I believe, I'm away until that Monday morning. And I believe, Keith, were you away as well? Because there has to be a flow to the meeting as well. I mean, I'm more than happy to talk to him via phone and things like that, but if the expectation is for us to tell a piece of the story, which I heard from Lisa, that's gonna take a little bit more coordination. I'd be happy to meet with Keith during the day on Monday.
I have 2 suggestions. If we're gonna use some slides, then I think we should insert them after the enrollment history and before the budget overview. And you should speak to them at that time, and I can, you know, I can transition to you and you can transition back to me. That's one suggestion.
Say that again, before the enrollment and.
Before,
After the
after the enrollment, before we get to
The nitty-gritty.
the
Okay.
what will it cost to achieve this mission next year? The alternative is without slides, I do an introduction, introduce whoever's there at the meeting, and say, we're here to talk about the budget, but before we talk about the budget, let's talk about what the money goes to pay for and the great things that are going on, and I'm gonna turn it over to you two to speak to the great things going on for a couple minutes.
Okay.
Which would you prefer?
We need visual.
That could be visual too. It's just not, it's just doing it a different way. I mean,
Yeah,
it
in a
could be a
different
whole
order.
separate, it could still be visual, Colleen, rather than.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the flow too, if it starts with Keith and then it goes to Jeff and I, and then it goes back to Keith, and then it goes to the CVU person, and then it ends with Keith again. And you only have an hour. I don't know if that's, and you wanna have time for conversation, that might be too many
My
breaks.
points that I'm advocating for are, you know, Lisa, I think you summarized it really well, just talking about what's great that's happening in the school.
I get
What are
that,
we
just
so
trying to
proud
figure
of?
out where to put it.
Yeah.
And I was just saying the overall flow of the meeting, if we're looking, I just think you do need to pay attention to that.
I think then, hearing what I'm hearing, my preference is for me to do the introduction up through the enrollment,
Mhm.
and then talk about, then introduce you guys
Mhm.
who are gonna talk about the great things going on at the school, and then you hand it back to me. And
Right.
with some visuals, some slides if you want,
Right.
inserted in between the enrollment and the,
Right.
what's it gonna cost next year slide. And then we'll go back.
And we already have some of those slides,
Yep.
people have seen them, we did it for the budget,
Yep.
forum.
Now, I always get tied up in who I communicate with. So the slides, once they're done, they go to you and you'll make sure that the other board members see because they shouldn't be seeing it for the first time or should they, on Monday?
I don't know, timing at this point.
Given the time you
I
got.
think your slide should be like, a series of bullets of kind of accomplishments. Maybe throw in some pictures of the children and, that you're good to go.
Can I put some fireworks in there and
Excellent.
have the nets of balloons that just drop
Exactly,
down? And
right, and then
the
you're-
band comes
and then-
marching in.
You don't
Yeah.
want to overshadow the board chair and embarrass him.
Go for it.
That's not
You can't overshadow.
It's not hard to overshadow me.
So just some clarification, I heard that you're gonna be out of town until Monday morning,
Uh-huh.
and you're flying in Monday morning? And-
No, I'm in a conference until, it goes until Monday. I'm gonna try to stay until late Sunday night in New York City, and then I'm driving back to be up here until Monday.
You're traveling back Sunday, Monday?
No, I'll be around the weekend.
Okay. I'm, flying in Monday, and I should be
I'm
back.
not going anywhere.
Me either. So.
Where's
I'm
that,
really
In case there's bad
jealous.
weather.
that nor'easter that comes up? Yeah.
Right.
Just in case there's bad weather, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just noticed one thing,
Bill and
we should
Lisa, you better pay
reorder
attention to what
those
the slides say.
in the first page, Bob, just the one little circle there.
Oh.
we should move.
Okay, we'll give it to him. Oh, do you want that sheet back?
You printed off Tammy's.
I printed up the old one. I
Yeah.
think. I realize now that it's the old one, because, anyway.
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, it's.
But
that-
even,
There's now about 6 old ones.
but
and
even
one.
in what I think is the current, I think we still need to move the enrollment history up.
Not in the newest one, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
All right, last thing on the annual meeting presentation, I also sent around the flyer. I know you've seen it.
Yes.
You obviously looked at it because you said something about it. I just want to make sure you had seen it too. It is on the website of the school. It was in the Viking that went out on the 7th, and it will be in the record that gets circulated on Friday or Saturday. I can't remember which day.
It's in the Viking again tomorrow.
It's in the Viking again tomorrow, great. Yeah, we had considered putting it in the Citizen, but they could not limit it to only the Heinsberg households. And given the timing of when the record was coming out, we thought that was the better course. Since I think the Citizen, it would have gone in the same week, the same day. so.
Is somebody able to post it on Front Porch Forum with a link to it?
I will do that. I was
Okay.
waiting for it to come out in the record, so
Great.
on Friday,
Yep.
I will submit a post, announcing the meeting timing, encouraging people to come, and attaching, I don't think I can attach a PDF in my posting, but I can put a link to the school's website for where it is. All right, I think that covers 6.2 as well, unless there's an addition, is there something else, a board corner? I don't think there is. All right, action matters, 7.1. Retreat date, the SU board just decided to hold it on May 30th, so it wouldn't really make sense for us to have it on a different day, so I'll entertain a motion to schedule the retreat on May 30th.
So moved.
Thank you, Colleen. I need a second.
I'll second it, I'm not gonna be there.
Thank you, Lisa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. 7.2, request.
It was a one zip vote.
Well, it's about the worst day of the year for me, but I can't make it all about me, so.
There is no PM.
Request for partial leave of absence.
I'll make a motion to accept the partial leave of absence.
Thank you, Lisa. Do I have a second? Just looking for a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. Allegra or Jeff, are you gonna speak to this?
Sure.
What do we need for the record, having received something via email?
Great. I can tell you all 3 administrators are in support of approving this. The person we have currently in her place is able to stay. She's also a CVU employee, and we've been able to work out her schedule that meets the needs of the kids she's serving at CVU and continues to work to meet the needs at the Heinsberg community school kids. So it's a nice opportunity for us to work together with CVU also. And kids will only benefit from this.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, discussion, anything? You ready for the question? All those in favor of accepting the administrator's recommendation on the motion for this partial leave of absence? Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. 8.0 consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Is Kathy the clerk?
The motion carries. Kathy is the
There
clerk.
are just 2 signatures on that, doesn't have to be hers.
9.0 director's comments. Lisa?
I just want to say thank you mostly to the administration, to Allegra and Jeff for all your hard work, to my fellow board members. It's been a really good experience for me to be on this board, and I wish Elaine was here, and Bob and Elaine.
I'll carry it back.
Everybody, I think Heinsberg's in really good shape, and I think it's because of all of your hard work, so.
Thank you.
I will think about you on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Thank you. And don't be surprised, you might have a moment at the annual meeting.
45 minutes.
You better be there.
Just this one big slide. Wait till you see this PowerPoint slide. We're cooking
Yeah,
up.
there you go.
The song and dance, we took that off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The acapella group is coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill? Colleen? I don't think I have. I think the only thing that I wanted to say something about the haystack thing, but I already did that. Thank you very much. All right, 10.0, next meeting dates. Well, obviously, we have a meeting on March 3rd. And then thereafter, we have a March 12th regular meeting. Please note, it starts earlier than normal because of the reconfiguration that is required after town meeting day votes. So the Heinsberg board's at 5:30 and the SU board is at 7. 11.0, executive session. A motion to go into executive session. Yes, Bill.
No, you're good, you're good.
To go into executive session to talk about negotiations and personnel.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Colleen?